Formally starting this session, our moderator, Mr. Rana Shom, co-chairman of the Minerals and Mining Committee and former CMD of NMDC, Mr. Dilip Kumar Mohanty, Director Production, NMDC Limited, has joined with us. Mr. Bishwadip Gupta, President Corporate Affairs, JSW Steel Limited, and former President of Bengal Chamber of Commerce, has joined with us. And of course, Mr. B. Pravakaran, Managing Director of Triveni Earth Movers Private Limited, is with us. I will now hand it over to Mr. Shom to take it forward from here. Over to you, Mr. Shom.
You please take liberty of expressing his views for around 15 minutes or so. That will leave us some time for discussions. And whatever questions we get from the listeners of this program, all the questions will be presented to you, and you will be answering these questions. But before, even if the questions are not forthcoming, we will have our own discussions here. Let me introduce the subject very, very briefly. As you all know, that in India, iron ore production during the last decade has been almost stagnant. In 2010, it was 209 million ton, whereas in 2020, it has been 203 million ton. It has been static at a level of around 200 million ton, barring 4 years in between, from 2012 to 2015, when because of many reasons, mainly the legal issues and environmental issues, it had dipped to a level of about 150 million ton. On the contrary, steel production has increased. It has increased over a period of 10 years in the last decade by about 50%. So there has been a mismatch between the growth of iron ore sector and the development of steel sector. I am sure that the learned speakers will be highlighting on this aspect and tell us what measures India has been taking or should be taking in increasing our iron ore production so that the increasing demand of steel can be met from within the country. I request Mr. D.K. Mohanty, who is from NMDC, India's largest iron ore miner and possibly the most important commercial miner today, to first deliver his speech. Mr. Mohanty. Yes, please, Mr. Mohanty.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Respected Rana Shom, sir, who is the President Co-Chairman of Mineral and Mining Committee, BCCI, and he is our former CMD from NMDC Limited itself. And also, we are having Sri Bishwadip Gupta, sir, who is the President Corporate Affairs, JSW Steel, Mr. Sunil Duggal, CEO, Vedanta Resources, and Mr. Pravakaran from Triveni Earth Movers.
Incidentally, Mr. Sunil Duggal, he is not in a position to participate. So only three of us are there. Three of you are there.
Okay. And a very good afternoon to all of you. And thank you, sir, giving me an opportunity to speak something about the subject, which is today, what lies beneath and what lies ahead. It is a wonderful subject which has been chosen by the committee itself. And it is a most relevant topic at this juncture. Why I'm saying, if I go back to the steel policy, national steel policy, somehow I will link it up to the steel policy where Government of India is trying to make 300 million ton by 2030. And to make 300 million ton, we need to have at least 500 million ton of iron bearing material. That is either iron ore or fine structured iron bearing material. We require around 500 million ton plus. And as rightly you said, in 2015 we have produced only 209, and by 2020 203. Like no much of improvement is there. So as a miner, we have to focus on this to give the material to the steel plants which are coming in near future, to see that we are also using a helping hand for our production and add value to the country. In the NMDC perspective, if I come to say, it is in the business of exploring the mineral resources available underneath the earth crust and exploit them systematically and scientifically for the last 6 decades, catering to the needs of the raw material requirement of the country. The capabilities of NMDC has in the exploration of minerals, Then the Ministry of Mines identified it as one of the exploiting agency in line with GSI, MECL, etc. Actually, NMDC is the only government company other than other agencies who does a lot of explore activities to add mineral resources to the total what available in our country. And as you have seen, Mr. Jindal also pointed out rightly, in India, we are blessed with such mineral abundantly available, but we need to explore more and more so that we can add new resources. And if we go on adding it, probably the cost, finally end of the day, the cost may come down also. Actually, NMDC had and continues to provide inputs in the field of mineral exploration, reserves identification, mine planning, etc. to other bodies also, which they benefit one and all utilize the same in the day-to-day activities. It is having a global exploration center at Raipur, Chhattisgarh, and carrying out exploration and activities in existing mines through core drilling to establish the additional reserves of NMDC mines, and in other mines also we are doing, and also we are doing some global exploration. I'm having a small presentation of 7 to 8 slides only that I would like to show what exactly we are doing here. Yeah, I'm just talking about now the what lies beneath. There we need to do a lot of exercises on the exploration part, what NMDC is doing and how we are adding resources to the country's wealth. And subsequently, I will do what is there in the ahead of it. That also I'll just touch upon at the end of it. These are the mineral exploration and initiatives which are being taken by our company, basically. And it involves activities like locate, identify, and establish the resources and to develop the mines. And ultimately, we are going to contribute to the India's sustainable economy also. It is having a similar geology like Australia and Canada, but the exploration spending in these countries are up to around $1 billion US. Wherever in India, we spend around 0.17 or so, which is very, very minimal in nature, maybe around 1275 crores per annum, as in December 2020. This is being done, but if you go through the government of India, those who have already done a NMET fund just to increase the introduced in the MMDR Act that to facilitate additional more nodal exploration agencies, including NMDC, and there only we have spent in 2.9 crores. However, we are having a fund amount of around 2,600 crores are available, but we are not able to do much of expenditure on this account to find out more and more. And to increase the participation, Government of India also has taken an initiative from March 2021. Private entities also, they have been allowed to exploration in addition to the other agencies, which includes NMDC also. And if I come to the NMDC part specifically, since 1958, in the beginning itself, we have been doing it. And we used to follow a different procedure for that as per the requirement. And we are having a very dedicated team headed by Mr. Abhijit Mukherjee. So we are having a dedicated group of that. They use, these are the systems what they do generally, that is remote sensing, then airborne magnetic spray, then geological information system, geological, geochemical, geophysical surveys, etc. Then they estimate the resources and reserves. And NMDC is having 8 number of GenX exploratory drilling machines also. And the drilling operations are being handled by our own team, which is there. And in last 8 years, conducted around 1.2 lakh meters of drilling. And in last 8 years, we've added around 500 MT of resources. And till to date, since 1958, around 1,574 million ton of resources has been added by the same team. And for doing exploration by NMDC, they do not only, I don't know, we go for other minerals also, that is copper, diamond, limestone, dolomite, then bentonite, emerald, magnesite, sapphire, and tungsten and graphite and this and also they do it. And out of this, most of the copper mines which you have explored and these are being given to Hindustan Copper Limited. Those who are the Hindustan Copper is the independent company which is utilizing it. And we had a beautiful and this Panthal magnesite, as you know, the beautiful deposit of magnesite. Actually, this is the mineral which is not available in abundant in India, but then that is being now that has been kept on hold by JK government only. There because of certain sentimental issues and other things, and Kiriburu and Megadriburu mines that also being explored by NMDC, which is being taken up by SAIL subsequently. In addition to that, we are having also our overseas presence over there where we have done gold in Tanzania, then tantalite in Namibia, then Madagascar also gold. We have done it, but it has not been successfully operated because of different reasons. And we are having a lot of facilities, in-house facilities. These are those systems we are being utilized nowadays. That is GPS, DGPS, then total session GNSS or SP60. All means latest technology is being utilized by our team to do exploration work. And there are some highlights also. I'm just putting. Our team is now doing a lot of exploration in Madhya Pradesh to find out the mineral available there. They have already identified high reach iron ore mines. Now this has been identified. Further investigation is on progress. They have done for manganese also. And I will just say that one iron ore in Lokanti, Singrauli district. These are all Madhya Pradesh only, and one manganese area in Sidan in Jabalpur district. These are all good source of manganese and iron. It is there. We have identified it. This will be added to the resources, and if possible, we may go for captive mining activities also. And kimberlite related, like connecting to that rocks is connected to diamond also. We are doing it presently in Panna, Chhatarpur and Damo districts of Madhya Pradesh. We are having successful results also. We are not coming out in details now, but subsequently we will come out of it. But we are doing. Our team is doing well in those areas. And there are certain things which NMDC, the first PSU, they are using a application of this Bhuvan application in collaboration with ISRO. They are using the satellite and they are able to do in remote areas also. Then these are the project exploration by NMDC. What we are doing it on there. We are doing around drilling, core logging, geochemical analysis, ore body modeling. These are the procedures actually. These are being followed by our department establishing reserve resources in Madhya Pradesh. And they will be we are the first PSU company to conduct micro diamond analysis and macro diamond analysis for establishing diamond potential of kimberlite in Madhya Pradesh. And we are getting a lot of success on this also. Then we have found out Chitragunta, Bishamnath, the gold block in Andhra Pradesh. And this is also a very good resource. We are going to have it through auction. We have got it through auction also. And NMDC intends to undertake a multidisciplinary exploration for diamonds in Baloda, Belmund area of Chhattisgarh state also. And if I say that some way forward for the mining activities specifically, that our country is having geopolitical potential area of around 5.71 lakh square kilometer, but enough importance has not been given, and we are yet to tap many of it, which will take some time because other parties also has to participate in a long way to get those things so that we can add up our resources. And for that, we think that there is an urgent need of modernizing the exploration philosophy and technology at assumes significance in the backdrop of MMDR Amendment Act, where government has given a lot of flexibility to add up the resources. Then National Geoscientific Data Depository, which will also collect and the baseline and mineral exploration information is proposed to be set up by GSA Ministry in Mines. Then Project Uncover of Geological Survey of India may help in identifying potential targets deep-seated for the deep-seated deposits. Like state governments, PSUs and other companies, like private entities, they have advantage of using the geoscientific baseline data of GSI, writing more target areas for mineral exploration in the country. Just one share it. And here, just I would like to point out that in India, around 1,500 operating mines and produce as many as 95 minerals, including 4 fuel-related minerals also we are producing. And actually, if I go through it, despite our huge potential, this mining sector has been underperforming with only 10% of its overseas geopolitical area being explored, and mining operation takes place only 1.5 to 2% of this area. Further, I will add it that the mining sector contributes to the GDP has been declining. As you have seen it, we could not do much of activities because of a lot of other avenues, which is around less than 2% of the GDP. Or 2%, nearing to 2% of the GDP, which need to be looked into so that we can add more value to the country's CA. As Mr. Jindal also pointed out, the effective tax rate in India stands is very high in this area. It is as good as around 150%. If I take 100% rate as the mining rate, if it is being considered, then around GST is around 18% and corporate tax is around 26%. So that is why, because premiums are very high. Generally, premiums are high. That is why we are not able to do at par with our international standard benchmarks, where it is around 40% or so, if I see. And in addition to this COVID-19 also has played a role where it has derailed all the possibilities what we had it. Now slowly it is recovering, and we will be able to do a lot of things in future. And in a way forward, as I said, for addition of values also, NMDC has gone for adding a steel plant, 3 million steel plant. And I should say that Rana Somsa, who is present over here, who was the pioneer in putting it to take NMDC from mineral to metal sector, they are transforming it because we are having our own resources utilized. He was the man who did it, and we are now bringing his dream into success. And I said, I should say, we have lighted up the coke-oven battery just 2 days back. We have started the activity. We should happy to learn, know it, and we need your blessings also for that, so that we can take it forward. And, with this, I feel we have put up some of the perspective from the NMDC side, and we are doing a really job. And this year, we are aiming to produce more than 40 million ton. We are so that we can add some more values. And as you have seen, Mr. Jindal was telling, because the market is under pressure, we are trying to supplement it with our quality ores, and we'll continue to do that in future also, to see the need. And how we are there to see that the steel companies also, they should grow, because they add more value to the Indian GDP. So we are there, and I shall be thankful to the members and this organizers for giving me an opportunity to speak on behalf of NMDC. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mohanty. Thank you very much. You are known to be a person who knows steel, but I find that you know mineral as well. Thank you very much.
Sir, I'm just trying to learn it now, but I am a basically steel man, and I'll try to put values to it also. Since I used to be the end user, now I am the person who is from the mineral to metal, so I'll try to put my value.
Go back in the value chain and discover the value of mining.
Yes.
Mr. Vishwadeep Gupta, if you can kindly deliver your initial speech. After that, of course, it will be followed up by a lot of discussions. And Mr. Mohanty, you have to wait for the discussions to take place.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm here.
And the next speaker will be Mr. B. Prabhakaran. First, Mr. Vishwadeep Gupta, please.
Thank you so much, sir. I feel so privileged to be sitting with all of you who are doyens. At least 3 of you are doyens of iron ore. I can say that. Mr. Rana Som, he himself is a fantastic person, well known in the iron ore industries. Mr. Prabhakaran, Mr. Mohanty, all of you represent such top iron ore companies. So I'm totally feeling out of place, sir. I think we made a mistake. You all are going from minerals to metals, and here I am trying to go from metals to minerals, trying to buy some iron ore mines. But my knowledge is absolutely nothing like what Mr. Mohanty has on iron ore. So I'm very, very challenged in that extent. So you have to excuse me for not knowing many things. As you know, sir, I spoke to you a lot, and you helped me a lot in preparing for this seminar today. But be what it is, I think that the topic, whoever has selected this topic, is fantastic. What lies beneath the purpose, and what Mr. Mohanty was saying, and I'm sure all of our purpose is to not to let it lie beneath. We have to try and bring it up. That is the first problem that I think we talk about, is my little experience in both Odisha, Jharkhand, in iron ore, as well as in some in coal, has been the land issue. Unfortunately, iron ore is always associated with forests. I mean, I do not know of many iron ore except some I saw in Chile when they have magnetite iron ore. Most of it that I've seen in India has been all associated with forests. Forests, animal paths, elephant corridors, tribal lands, you name it, sir. Anything that you are not allowed, iron ore is below that. So the first thing that comes to mind is the getting the iron ore aware, how to go approach the iron ore which is lying beneath, how to bring it up. And as you, sir, you're well aware that iron ore needs a lot of square kilometers, hectares of land to mine. So that was my first point. The second that I had was the iron ore. Even if you have brought it out, how do you evacuate that iron ore? I think we have experts in this panel. I know of two of you are very, very expert in transportations and logistics management. And I believe the biggest issue now that we are all facing is, even if you mine the iron ore, then taking it to the respective end users factory. This is a major challenge. And today, during monsoon, if you see some of the iron ore infrastructure around the mines, you have nightmares. I mean, even to ship iron ore to the ports is so difficult. I mean, people talk about different alternative methods. For example, we have built one of the largest conveyor belting to transport iron ore from Sandur mines to our factory in Bellary. I mean, it's a huge effort, huge cost, but we had to do it because the trucking system is so difficult in those areas, even in those Karnataka belts. And I have personally witnessed serious issues in other states also. So I think two major issues come up, sir. One is, as everybody has pointed out, approaching the mineral which is lying below. How do you get it? Secondly is, even if you have got it, how do you take it to the respective position, to plants? This I think is something that we need to talk about. I am aware of a lot of investments which even one of your panelists, he is doing in putting up slurry pipelines, major distances in slurry pipelines. But there are challenges even in slurry pipelines, getting the lateral singular movement approvals, then getting water, then pumping. There are a lot of challenges. But that's one of the points that I thought I'll highlight on this. From a steel plant's point of view, that you might have iron ore, but how do you bring it out and how do you bring it to your plant? This is one of the major questions that we answer every day. As we all know, and we have discussed this, iron ore has is an umbilical cord relationship with steel plants. I mean, the demand that iron ore has is completely derived from steel plants. I mean, that is what is very important. And based on this, sir, and getting a suggestion from your side, I did a little bit of studying, because since I do not know much about it, I was doing some studies with Platts and Steel Dynamics, WSD, etc. And some very interesting two data came out. and I'm talking globally, I'm not talking Indian ones. The first one that came out was that iron ore, contrary to a lot of thoughts that people have, and even I had this idea, the production of iron ore globally has always kept pace with the production of steel. This is something that I did not realize. I did not realize until I saw the data that iron ore has not been found wanting in terms of production. Yes, there have been temporary blips. For example, when you had a major dam breakout in Brazil, in Vale mines, you had a lot of problems in worldwide iron ore availability. When Australian mines were flooded, you had problems. When during the pandemic you had the transportation as a problem, you had some temporary blips. But generally speaking, and I was seeing the trends, iron ore production and steel productions have been in sync. You mentioned also, sir, about 2000, the steel production has been a little higher, iron ore has not improved. But even in that year also, I was just saying, maybe I'll share this with you later when we finish. About 109 million tons of steel in 2019, we still had plus iron ore availability. So what I'm trying to say, sir, here is, I always thought from a steel plant's point of view that we have a crisis in iron ore availability. But I think thanks to the work that all of you are doing, the NMDCs of the world, the private miners, iron ore has been available. This is something that now I have data to tell you. And this is worldwide phenomenon. It's not just like that. Things like, we are talking of 2.3 billion tons of iron ore made in 2019, when your need was at least 500 million ton less. It's 500 million ton more than what the steel plants were making. So I think we are in a good position as far as the production and availability of iron ore is concerned. Take away the small, the temporary blips. That was the first point. So the second point that what came out was historically, I found out, and this is something, an idea you gave me, sir, the other day. Historically, found out that iron ore prices have not been predatory. Iron ore prices have remained stable and have remained, it went through a bit of a supply-demand situation in 2019, 20, 21, going up to say $200 a ton. But look at the way it has come down again. I mean, today, $90. Yesterday, I heard that in China, it went up to $111. But anyway, these are temporary features. But what I'm trying to say is that I did a study of last 15 years, and I found that the prices of iron ore have not been predatory. They did not cause major disruptions in manufacturing of steel. And this, I think, is a big thing that even in our company also we will need to see, that some of the narratives that we have been hearing might not have been true when once you go and do some data, mining search on what is actually the historical data that is presented. So these were two of the points that I had on a global scale. As far as Indian side is concerned, and all the steel plants I know have a big issue of approaching how to mine, and even if you mine, how to bring it out. Taxes and all that, Mr. Jindal has talked about, Mr. Mohanty has talked about. I'm not talking about the royalties and etc. And I would like to leave that and want to hear and learn from Mr. Prabhakar, whom I respect as one of the top individual entrepreneurs in iron ore sector. In fact, I know Mr. Prabhakar from when, sir, I think in 2006 or 7, I met you standing on top of an iron ore mine in Barbil. And since then, I've seen how you've grown. So I really would like to hear a lot from you, and I'm sure most of the other panelists and the viewers would also like to learn. Sir, Mr. Som, thank you so much, sir, Mr. Chairman, sir. That's all I had from my side. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Gupta. You have highlighted most important points, starting from the land issue to the issue of transportation and logistics, to the problems of laying slurry pipelines, to the problem of iron ore production and its match or mismatch with the steel production. All these issues are very, very thought-provoking, and I am sure that after we finish with Mr. Prabhakaran, we'll be taking up these issues again. Please stay on. We'll be discussing these issues. Thank you. May I request Mr. Prabhakaran? May I request Mr. Prabhakaran?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah.
Thanks, sir.
Prabhakaran, we were missing your face. Now, Mr. Prabhakaran, I welcome you, and for you, it is a special welcome, because let me tell you very frankly that you are a very well-known person, but you have not been seen much in the public forums. In fact, I am possibly seeing you in the public forum for the first time. It's a great honor for us that we have got you as a speaker. And as Mr. Gupta was mentioning one day, that you handle 46% of iron ore, whatever is produced in Orissa. It's a great thing. And we all want to hear from you what you are doing, what are the issues which is bothering you and India as a nation. So these are the things which you want to learn from you. Please proceed, Mr. Prabhakaran.
Thank you, Anasan, sir. Thank you, Gupta sir. Gupta sir ordered me to be in this panel, so I'm here for him and co-panelists and also viewers. Basically, let me walk through what is lying beneath. How did we achieve, how we can unearth this potential? My experience, what we did it in the last decade, and what I look at it for forward, I just want to place it forward. Basically, sir, India has got enough iron ore. Iron ore reserves are plenty. There is no shortage of iron ore. Basically, as a mining industry, one of the key stakeholders is the social license. The community which works around and lives around the area needs to be cared, adopted, and needs to be grown as the industry grows. I think this is one of the fundamentals, because there is a complete, government is very ambitiously come with the new policy today of auction. So since there are a lot of newcomers who have come into mining, I like to present my key ingredients which the industry should take into account when this mining is starting. It's majorly first is the social license. We don't have employable people around the mine. First thing is we need to keep that, we need to teach them how to get employed. We need to run a lot of social initiatives which will make these people employable. I think this is one of the foremost duty of any mining company which is stepping in to do to unearth the potential. And this comes in a big reward where most of the projects where we know there is a lot of clearances. As such, personally, our company has handled more than 18 to 19 greenfield mines and brownfield mines where we have gone for expansion. We have operated and operated a large mine of which is 18 million ton single pit operation. And also we are operating even a 0.5 million ton capacity mine. Mining is inclusive growth of community, which I believe, which is one of the fundamentals which is required to be taken as one of the, how do we have various departments in a mining company? The social licensing department, it is not CSR. A lot of people will talk about CSR. They don't want charity, they want livelihood. How are we going to provide livelihood? If you have livelihood programs, we need to look at, yes, we have got high level of mechanization coming in, we have to compete. Unfortunately, there is parity in the price discovery of the iron ore which comes out. PSUs have a different cost of production. Private mines have got different cost of production. The auction has got different cost of production, but the commodity is the same. So with this kind of different pricing, when the auction guy pays premium, which he thinks that everything is the duty of the government to provide the layover of the land, it doesn't really happen. So this is one of the key areas where there is a significant cost and effort which has to be put in on the social license aspect and running them people to become employable. This is one factor which will be one of the key foundations for the mining industry to unearth the potential, what is lying beneath. As I said earlier, there is enough of iron ore available. Iron ore is not shortage. It is which iron ore goes where Today for Maharashtra, we have ore coming all over from Odisha. I'm very happy to say we just opened up one mine in Gadchiroli, which we have already started operating it, where logistically it is only 30% to the customer's distance. Otherwise, it used to go from rail to ship and from ship to then again to unload and to domestic transportation. There are enough iron ore available in various parts of the country. It needs to be explored because the total cost matters to the client, delivered cost. So the logistic, which is also a challenge, there is again a traffic load in particular area. You have iron ore, but you may not get the rakes. You may not have the port infrastructure. You may not have the road infrastructure. So there are a lot of limiting factors which happens. Obviously, we also run a slurry pipeline, 4 million ton capacity. But as Gupta sir said, there are a lot of challenges to lay a pipeline. It's not the right of way is an issue. People think that it's a challenge to the existing transporters that they lose their transportable volume. So with this, I seriously believe social license is one of the most fundamentals. And then what ore? Today, as a mining industry, previously we used to take all the ore, the low grade, the middle grade, the high grade, high phos material, 518, 1030. Today, what is happening? A steel plant needs particular grade of ore. The other product is becoming a surplus, or it's not also becoming an economical viability for them to sell this ore because they have taken the mine at a very high premium. So they like to take what they wanted. But the industry here, there are a lot of small steel mill owners who suffer for want of raw material supply, and they are not able to get the raw material because we have the material lying in the mine, but it doesn't make economics for the high premium guy to make losses and supply material to the market. So it's a complete imbalance. They all have put the pressure back into the PSUs like NMDC or OMC to supply, which has its own limitation. It has got a clear plan of growth. They cannot immediately double the production or triple the production. So just look at the one small factor which I wanted to bring. We look at mineral conservation and mineral beneficiation. So today, a company puts in a high grade beneficiation complex inside the mine. It is determined to his financial interest because he has already taken the mine at a very high premium. And again, he's going to invest on a beneficiation plan to increase from 58 to 65, which is going to cost huge money to him. And the overall cost becomes highly uneconomical. So I sincerely believe there is a lot of policy disparity because we have three players. And a highly auction mine doesn't want to put a beneficiation inside the mine because he wants to have mining cost the least. If he's going to spend more, his cost of mineral production cost goes up and then the premium goes up. We are aware some of even the large companies finding it stretched to with this kind of premium has been surrendered to the government. So this policy which is happening, all the product from mine has to go out. There is a challenge because the policy does not benefit them. Second is beneficiation. NMDC can do, PSUs can do because they don't have premium on it. But for a company which has taken it on premium, if he's going to beneficiate, the cost of mineral is going to be more than the cost of what it's available. We don't have really usage of this low grade iron ore, which is about 55, 56, 57. Steel technology has to start taking 55 onwards. There is a huge amount of low grade which is getting piled up in the mining industry. Low grade is, or the tailings or whatever you call it. The threshold has been put as 45% and above. But today, the steel industry wants to take around 55 onwards. What will happen to this 53, 54, 55, which is becoming a product of the mine, which is getting piled up? This is going to have a problem in our total forest, what we are going to divert. So with this, I was just thinking the policy has to be readdressed. There should be a serious panel understanding because every change in policy needs to be addressed back according to the practicality. I think we need to moderate this policy which fits for the steel industry. And with this, I think we have come for a change. Yes, now it is a very good policy. Government has come in, government is proactive. But as industry leaders, we have to go back to them and see what are the tweaking we need to do it to make it best. I'm very sure mining as an industry has to have its own duty cycle. It cannot become a backward integration to a steel industry. The industry on its own has to survive, because then there can be forward growth which can happen by beneficiating the ore, by usage of low grade, having alternative transport systems, which only a logistic company and the mining company can invest. I think with this, I just wanted to also tell there is Orissa. If you look at it, there is X amount of ore which is being produced from Orissa and Chhattisgarh. There are few states which has got mining leases available, but today the production is not happening. There is a huge amount of infrastructure which is available. The railway lines which are available, which are lying empty. So if those mines in the eastern India also starts, there can be a distribution of this load on the logistic, because mining can happen, mining can scale up. But today the concentration is happening on specific areas. This is going to create a lot of imbalance in the social side and also on the logistic side. So this needs to be done. We need to be equity distribution of mines across India, so that the logistic is also spread and the total cost also comes down. So I think these are the major points, and I'm really feeling that there is a big change. It's a new era of mining which has come in, and I think we have to drive it into the right direction, so that the common man who builds the house has an affordable steel cost, and so that we as Indians, we feel proud that yes, we are able to give the roof to a person who doesn't have a roof at the optimum cost. That's all, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Prabhakaran. Thank you very much for highlighting very, very important issues. In fact, when Mr. Vishwadip Gupta was talking about the land issues, one thing was occurring to me, that it all depends, as miner, how much trust we can generate amongst the stakeholders, amongst the landowners, that if we take their land, their interests will be taken care of. How much confidence we can give to the society that even if we remove the trees, we will do many times more plantation to ensure that the forests are protected. Rather, afforestation exceeds deforestation. What happens in NMDC, in Kirindul and Bacheli mines of Chhattisgarh, if you see these mines from the top, you will find that mining areas are much more green than the non-mining areas because of intensive plantation which NMDC has done. Therefore, when NMDC wants to clear up some space for mining, nobody says that NMDC should not do it, because people know, people have confidence that whatever destruction to the forest they can do, it will be overcome in near future. Anyway, coming back to CSR social responsibilities, I fully agree with Mr. Prabhakaran that, always people want a little more than what is ensured by statute. So people feel CSR is the right, but they look forward to having something which goes beyond CSR, and you can get a best result only if you can address the livelihood issues and not only the welfare issues. Mr. Prabhakaran, you have also talked about the statutory issues. You have said how the present policies are more favorable to the steel industry than to the mining industry. I would say not really the mining industry is not so favorable to the national interest, because protection of minerals and optimum mining is in the interest of nation. It is not in the interest of a particular community like mining and all that. So that way, the responsibility is on us, the miners, to highlight these facts to the government, to the policymakers, that yes, possibly the government is thinking more in terms of revenue, more in terms of revenue generation. What is important is to think more in terms of development, not of revenue generation alone. So these are the things possibly you have highlighted, very important things. Now going back to the panelists, there has been a very, very good discussion in the panel, very good discussions here, and I think we may possibly highlight one point. I just want to highlight one point, is that, differing with Mr. Prabhakaran, in the short term, what he's telling is absolutely right. There is a scope for increasing iron ore production, and as Mr. Gupta has said, as steel production will go up and more demand for iron ore will be there. Obviously, iron ore industry will respond, and iron ore production also will automatically go up. That is the trend what Mr. Gupta has observed globally, and he's confident that same trend will be applicable in India too. But then, my doubt is that we are doing not enough exploration. What Mr. Prabhakaran is telling may be true for next 5 years or 10 years, but not beyond 10 years. You see, today, India's iron ore reserves are just about 5.5 billion tons, as against Australia's 48 billion ton, and as against Brazil's 29 billion ton. In terms of percentage, India's iron ore reserves today represents just 3.6% of global reserves. Australia, it is 28% plus, and Brazil, it is 14% plus. Therefore, our reserves, our resources are not getting converted into reserves. And that's why you are so low in the picture. It is time that we carry out intensive exploration, as Mr. Mohanty was talking about, and we convert the resources into reserves. Then only the mining community and the steel industry in India will get a confidence that mining in iron ore industry will be sustainable and it will continue to satisfy the need of steel industry beyond 10 years or 15 years or so. What do you say about this, Mr. Prabhakaran?
Sir, exactly right, sir. I agree with you on this exploration. Basically, sir, whatever we have got this G1, G2 exploration standards which has been done, it has to be now, we need not only start for the existing mine, there should be a drive to see that wherever the leases were earlier allotted to any companies and which has been not, the present allottees has been, the custodian is with the state government, there should be a specific drive with what Monty said about this NMET fund. I think there should be a specific drive to re-explore the mines which has been already diverted for mining purpose, where mining is not happening. So the total leases which is there are allotted for mining, and how much is operation. There is a X delta of mine where the leases are not in operation. Let it be in the state of Jharkhand, Orissa, Chhattisgarh. There should be a special drive. Then the resources value, what you said, can be rediscovered without having fresh diversion of forest area. Because why do you need a fresh forest area diversion when the existing leases itself can explore and give a better deposit? In this, I just wanted to tell one of the mine which I was operating earlier, I didn't, the reserve was about 80 million ton to 100 million ton. So at the time we wanted to do a detailed exploration to see with the new threshold, the rediscovered quantity was around 400 to 440 million ton. So look at the scale of extra reserves which we could rediscover. Maybe I may be wrong, but I think the existing leases which are not in operation should be re-explored, can be enough discovery which can come immediately and where the fund is also awaiting. And the social issues are also less because the people living around the mine wanted the mine to start, and they'll be more than happy to allow the exploration to happen because they know that if the exploration happens, the mine is going to start. I think these kind of small tweeting policies which we can do can really be a lot of work to the
I think Mr. Mohanty will be, he knows it very well as a person belonging to NMDC. In 2003-4, it was known to everybody that Donimalai mines will be completely exhausted in the next couple of years. Yeah. But then they carried out exploration, and it is working still in the same speed and same capacity after 15 years. So it happens, as Mr. Prabhakaran is telling, that there has to be exploration in the existing mines. But then we feel that there has to be greenfield exploration as well. And in India, the greenfield exploration is not really taking place. And the fund allocated is low, the initiative is low. So something we have to be done. And I believe NMDC has to take a lead in this area.
Thank you, sir. As you said, three things are highlighted really, which is to be appreciated. As Mr. Prabhakaran said, with the existing mines, already NMDC has added around 1.5 billion tons of resources. Already it is added. That has come to reserve also now in our existing Baladila sector. And as you said correctly, in Donimalai also we have added around 142 million ton in Donimalai, where it was told that in 15 years or 20 years it will be finished, but now we are getting more and more. Those parts we are taking care in the existing so as to keep the vegetation part safe, not to exploit more on that area. We are doing that job. And you are rightly said, and I also pointed it out that NMET fund utilization is to be done. That government has to be proactive and they have to bring really quality teams to do more and more exploration. I've opened it up just like that, but I don't think we are getting that type of quality people, those who can do. NMDC is doing a lot of things in that area, and rightly highlighted by our team members. It is being highlighted that land issues are really more and more, and people are, we are really finding difficulty in different states because of their political interference or so. They are not that much conducive for us to do mining. And one more thing was highlighted, that this evacuation process that was rightly addressed. Even if we produce also, we cannot evacuate it. There we need a lot of investment to come in actually. And NMDC is already doing for around 15 million ton of evacuation from our Baladila sector through slurry. And the cost of transportation also will be very, very cheap. As you have seen, it is coming around 70.
You're talking of pipeline. You're talking
pipeline.
of pipeline.
Yeah. We are putting a lot of money on that.
You are also talking of pipeline. You are talking of also pipeline. And Mr. Prabhakaran has been laying a pipeline of 4 million ton capacity. But then I always had a doubt that pipeline is not really a substitute of surface transport. What happens at any rate, what you do in pipeline, you are basically using your fines.
Exactly, because we produce around 70% fines.
But then what you are going to do with 30%? Many
there you need to have separate transport.
Sometimes you are tempted to crush your lumps and convert into fines and then pump it down. What is happening? And even if you do the pipelines, the cost of sintering is much less than the cost of using pellets, manufacturing and using pellets. I really do not know whether pipeline can only supplement to a little bit, but pipelines cannot substitute the other modes of road transportation, either road or surface, or even, as you say, conveyor belt. What do you say, Mr. Gupta, about it?
I think you're right, sir. I mean, depending on what sort of iron ore you want to transport, what is the distance you want to transport, a lot of things come over. I remember even a small transportation from one of Jilling to another beneficiation plant in Odisha was not able to be done because the MOEF did not give a clearance for the pipe for it to cross. So it depends on many factors. But what I was trying to say, we did a lot of study on this subject, sir, particularly Donimalai, you were mentioning, all the mines that we bring iron ore from today in Karnataka. They're all reconciled in one place. Then from there, we have 16 odd kilometers of pipe conveyors, not pipelines.
Covered conveyors.
Covered, so that there's
no
there is no pollution.
Air pollution, yes.
Pollution. So we bring that today. We are bringing that right up to from different parts. It's coming. It's not just one mine. From every mine, it comes and sets in a place, and then finally the whole thing comes into the plant. That in Bellary has helped a lot in terms of many things. One is costs. Two is we are away from that transportation issue that we were having huge problems. Three, the biggest thing is there's no pollution now on that road today. If you see from the Sandur mines to our place, or from here Donimalai mines to our factory in Vijayanagar in Bellary, you have absolutely that pollution issue is taken care of. This is so, as I said, depending on what you want to transport, how you want to transport, it happens. So Mr. Prabhakar himself is running today one of the largest beneficiation plants in Odisha, near Jajpur. I think even transportation there is a big problem sometimes. But then from his plant, he's supplying this to his slurry to other parts of Odisha or other places. I think about 300 kilometers, Mr. Prabhakaran?
Yeah, around close to 280 kilometers.
280 kilometers of slurry pipeline which goes out is a huge transportation solution is done. Of course, he needs the water from the river. He needs approvals for that. That's an issue. Whether he brings the water back as backwater back into his factory, I do not know all that things. But I think that to answer your question, sir, it is not one answer that will fit everything. I think there are many and solutions to the same. There are different problems, and there will be different solutions to the problems. And each plant will make its own thing. So I just wanted to do one small thing before. I mean, that's my knowledge is exhausting now. I was also a part of the national steel policy when we were making the first time we did the steel policy. Sir, I think it's time, and I think all the speakers, you also mentioned about this. There has to be an integrated policy between steel, coal, and iron ore. And I'll tell you why, sir. For example, coal is a national subject. Iron ore is a concurrent state subject. The issue that iron ore has is that no state wants to lose anything. So the moment you have iron ore in a state, you want to efficiently transport it to another state where you have land, where you have everything. You want to convert that into steel. They said, no, add the value in my state. You cannot take my iron ore and put it there. Coal, no issues. Coal is national subject. So what I'm trying to say, sir, here, when you mentioned about this 300 million tons by 2030, I was a part of the 100 million tons, which never happened, of course. But at least we saw some directions. The problem that happens is we do not have an integrated policy for steel, iron ore, coal, and the other raw minerals, for example, which Mr. Mohanty was talking about developing. Things like magnesite, which are needed by the steel industry. And these are not there, sir. So I think if anything that, sir, you can take chamber to make a recommendation from this seminar is we have to make a good paper to the government to make an integrated policy where iron, steel, and minerals would be having a similar policy. So it should be aligned, sir. This is a big political debate. It cannot solve just like that, each state, center issues and all that. But I think we must make a beginning by Bengal Chamber. Or, sir, you are such a big leader in this field. Everybody respects your ideas. If we can do that, it will be great, sir.
Mr. Gupta, it is a wonderful suggestion. It's a wonderful suggestion, and I'm sure that this would be one of the key proposals, key suggestions, which Bengal Chamber of Commerce and Industry will like to forward it.
Sir, one more thing you can add it there also. For evacuation purposes, the railways also should come in line with that, because we are facing a lot of difficulty evacuation. Nowadays, we produce a lot of things in Baladira, but I'm not to evacuate because you are not getting rakes, because coal has become a shortage and they're diverting there. That also.
Gupta, don't you feel it is also a very important point?
It is very, very important.
Adding the railways and expansion of railways within the scope of this. Right?
Absolutely, sir. I think Mr. Prabhakaran will also agree to this.
Important point they have said. Meanwhile, what Mr. Prabhakaran has said regarding the mismatch between the interest of preserving iron ore and promoting the interest of the steel industry, this mismatch has also to be highlighted. This is a very important point Mr. Prabhakaran has said, and possibly we should take note of. Or no, is there any question coming to this panel? Is Arnav here? Okay. Any other issue you will want to raise, Mr. Mohanty, Mr. Prabhakaran, and Mr. Gupta?
No, it is already addressed. It is already addressed.
All that we want to say is that thanks to you as a chair, sir, you have conducted a brilliant panel discussion.
Yes.
Mr. Som, if you permit me, this is Mukherjee. If you permit me, I want to raise a question.
Yes, please.
My question is basically for the exploration. Whoever is the panelist, learned panelist, any one of the panelists, including Mr. Som, do you feel that the current regulatory canvas actually encourages the very high risk capital investment in exploration? I know NMDC is doing a lot of exploration for their own. Similarly, maybe a few handful of private entrepreneurs. But somehow I have a feeling that current regulatory regime it is not very conducive for so-called junior miners to explore and then have their own business model intact.
Any one of you would like to answer?
Sir, I like to tell my
Yes.
views.
Yes.
So basically, sir, we run a lot of exploration programs. So the new policy which has come called as the composite license. Let's forget the mining lease. So maybe I was very happy to conduct one of the first composite license, iron ore cum manganese composite license which we took, where the policy today allows me to explore. And if I don't like it, I can surrender it back. There is no penalty for it. If I wanted to sell it for a junior mining company, he can explore it, create a value, and again sell it. I think this needs little bit of a more publicity of this and maybe a roadshow for this composite license. I feel this composite license is the sunrise for junior mining companies, because today, sir, the premium, which is all in 3 digits, 100, 120, 140, whereas in the composite license, it's around 30 to 38 or 40%, which is also very high. I think with more composite license coming, because it's not going to serve the immediate need of the steel industry, I think it can happen in 3 years' time. It can be available for production 3 years or 4 years. I think this composite license is a wonderful policy which has come in. I think my request is to see that if the Rana Som sir, if you can look through the policy and see that if that can be promoted more and more junior mining companies which has got the capital for drilling and who has got the social license can bring in large amount of reserves to the country and also benefit to the company which is doing it, because it is now transferable, saleable or surrenderable without penalties.
Mr. Prabhakaran, you will be happy to know that there are 2 people, including me, myself and Mr. Partho Bhattacharya, who were associated in formulation of these recommendations for this policy through CII. So we worked hard for about 6 months, and one of the policy recommendations which you had made is this, what you just now have said, and this has already been converted into law, and this is a part of the national mining policy now. But then the issue is, this has not been, as you said, publicized properly. It has not come as an issue, as a part of a global circular. Across the world, only junior mining companies, they carry out this type of exploration and they benefit from it. They take the risk, and a lot of venture capital is flows into the junior mining companies with the expectation that they will be giving handsome returns. In India, it is not happening. But the composite license is an answer to this issue. And more composite license should be sought. People should know that they can seek this. More and more composite license should be sought and should be executed.
Sir, I would like to add one thing. What you said is correct. This is a very welcome step has been taken by GOI, not being publicized in a big way. In that, in your recommendation, you can put that the bid premium can be reduced so that the smaller players also can come into picture.
Yeah, they can.
And performance security, what is being given, that also should be reduced so that we will have more people in the field. Otherwise, it is not becoming so competitive for going ahead with this. With a lot of money is to be put into it. If this also can become there, that some reduction should be given, then I think it will be okay.
Yeah, but fortunately, the policy has been already there. This is the details of the execution part of the policy. One has to work on it, and it is very easy to change this part of the policy because it is not a part of the policy at all.
Okay.
Mr. Mukherjee, are you satisfied with the answer, or you have to add anything, sir?
I am 1000% satisfied, and I must give kudos to this beautiful panel speakers, particularly Mr. Vishwadeep Gupta, what points he has brought to the table, Mr. Prabhakaran. Mr. Prabhakaran has told whatever I used to tell long back, but anyway, I am sure with this sort of enlightened thought process among the panel speakers and who are representing, I think, more than 60-70% of India's iron ore production, other than captive steel miners, SAIL and Tatas. I am sure we are going to see great days ahead for the iron ore industry, if I may say so. Iron ore mining industry. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Arnab, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Tell me, sir.
Yeah, you can. If there is no other question, possibly we can close the session now at this stage.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We can close the session.
So we can close the session.
Yes,
Once
sir.
again, I thank Mr. Mohanty, Mr. Gupta, and Mr. B. Prabhakaran. I look forward to attending this type of program and this type of interactive sessions more and more in future. Our thinking in BCC and I has been that there should be, once we come out of this pandemic situation, which we are expecting it will be there very soon, we should have a physical program, and this physical program, the scope of interaction will be more than what we have here. So I'm looking forward to attending a physical program and getting all of you, the esteemed speakers who had participated today in the physical programs, to give us more and more opportunity to interact, to learn from you, and to look forward to having something new. Meanwhile, Mr. Vishwajit Gupta, I assure you that your ideas will definitely be reflected in the suggestion which BCC and I will record for forwarding to the appropriate authority. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir.
Let me take 30 seconds of time to thank all the panelists. I have been glued to the session and really enjoyed it. A lot of thoughts have come. And I completely echo Mr. Rana Shom's point that we should meet physically and talk more about these issues. It is good to see that the whole overall scenario in the mining sector, particularly iron ore, is different now than what it was 3 years or 4 years back. That it is improving, the policy level things are changing. I was not very clear as to whether there has been change in the mind of judiciary, because there has been a lot of judicial activism in iron ore mining. Has that somewhat been controlled, or are the judiciary thinking in a more progressive, proactive manner? That is something which I would be very keen to know, but I think session is closing now. Don't have to answer now.
No, sir, we can take the time to, if anyone would like to.
I like to say my views, because previously the revenue share, for example, Triveni was working on a revenue share contract. Now the steel companies have become the revenue share, and the benefit of the revenue was from a private hand, it has gone to the government or to the people. I think since this biggest beneficiary has been the people, I think entire rundown of the thoughts has been completely different, and I think it's a sunrise. I think industry is not going to suffer anymore. Only thing is we have to take the society along, the people along who are not employable, sir.
Fantastic. This is really a great development.
Sir, Mr. Partha Bhattacharya, sir, I had one small question for you, sir. Since you have been the architect of coal and Mr. Somnath for iron ore, and you made the policies that we are talking about today, the composite policies. Is there anything comparable or equivalent to CMP-DI in iron ore?
Is IBM a close, somewhat close to that?
For example, if you talk of coal mining exploration, we all go to Ranchi.
Yeah,
and work with
CMPD also operates through MECL, and there are other agencies there.
Yeah, what I'm trying to say is that it's a repository of all data information.
Yeah.
Because as you know, we had coal mines, and we were doing a lot of 3D high resolution seismic surveys in the Asansol area, and we had a lot of help coming out from CMP-DI. Now, my question to you, or if Tuhin was here, I would have asked him: is there an iron ore equivalent of CMP-DI?
What does IBM do?
I do not know. I have no.
Bureau of Mines. I don't think they are as
it is a statutory body which regulates actually.
But I think something
all
like
the rules and
CMPDI in
regulations,
iron ore
mining
mining
plan, and approval. That's all.
Bhattacharya, there is no iron ore equivalent of CMP-DI.
Yes.
So the reason
Why can't you look at
reason for CMP-DI is that CMP-DI was conceived, on the Russian pattern. So when Coal India was formed, and this particular subsidiary, single window kind of service, geology, exploration, mine planning, design, everything, it was on the Russian model. I think that model was never considered for iron ore mining.
But MECL is available, sir. My only point is MECL is available. Maybe the panel can consider to see that the exploration data, what MECL can take it to the custodian of data. I think MECL, I did few explorations for them in Jharkhand. where MECL is also custodian of lot of data, which is
Actually, this MECL is for all the type of minerals, not specifically for iron ore.
right, sir.
It is for all the minerals. It is there.
But can the private sector sort of become a CMPD and endeavor to become a CMPD? Because this service will be required in a big way. With this opening up Sunrise, as you are saying, this service will be required by many. So can a private sector institution come up? Because today that is not a problem. It is not that
But,
license Raj kind
At
of.
present, actually, NMDC does a lot of job in this exploration, and we are well equipped also with that.
So NMDC can hive off a company. Maybe these activities can be put into a company.
That can be thought of.
Yeah.
As
When
a
you
subsidiary
create a
company, it can
CMPD,
be.
that's the
So we
best
are
way
having a
of
lot of
creating a
expertise on
CMPD
this.
equivalent.
We are having a lot of expertise on this.
Yeah.
Correct, sir. I agree with Monty, sir.
Yes.
I think it should be, then iron ore specific thing can happen. And
Can be.
especially magnetite deposits can come out, and that can be a new era of
But
availability of it.
as CIL
Yeah,
is the
yeah.
holding company of CMPDI, NMDC can hold a company created for that purpose.
A subsidiary, okay, it is a welcome suggestion. Yes, I think.
I think for the co-chairman, we have another point to go to the Delhi office for.
So with this, shall we conclude the session?
Yeah, yes.
Thank you, sir.
you,
With
sir.
this, we have come to end of this session, and we'll go for a break. And again, we will be coming back at 2:30 p.m. with the fireside chat session with the chairman and managing director of Coal India, Sri Pramod Agarwal. We thank you, everyone, and we'll join exactly at 2:30 p.m. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you, sir.